The film opens with a girl running in the woods. A man, who is perhaps her father, is there too. He approaches a horse that lies on the ground, struggling for its life. Once he puts the animal out of its misery, a lady wakes up from this supposed nightmare. The scene shifts, showing the lady hitchhiking. A car containing 3 friends passes her. One of them is Heather, saying they should have picked her up because there are 3 of them, but just one hitchhiker. The other 2 are Rona and Scott. As they ride, they talk about their friends who are not with them. They eventually reach their destination, where their other 2 friends arrive too. They are Andy and Donnie. While the 5 of them walk toward a building, we see the hitchhiking lady they didn't pick up nearby. When they occupy a table, Rona places a map on it, and Scott asks if she has a plan. She says she likes to set realistic goals as she gives him a certain look, indicating she thinks he does not do that. Soon Andy acts like he accidentally spilled beer on Heather's shirt. It prompts her to visit the restroom to deal with the mess. Of all the people, the hitchhiker enters too. She tells Heather the latter will make it worse due to the way she is cleaning her shirt. Thus, the young lady gives Heather a scarf to cover herself. Returning to the group, Heather introduces Carla to them. She says Carla was kind to help her. Scott informs the newcomer they are searching for a lost cabin. It sounds like a treasure hunt to her. Andy jokes he is only there for the birds. Rona says her father perished and her friends become upset. She doesn't think there is much treasure in the cabin, which belonged to her dad. We learn she has not seen him since she was 8 years old. Scott says they are heading to a place called Mercy Falls. He asks Carla if she knows of it, and she claims she does. Heather proposes that the newcomer be their guide, but Carla says she would not want to intrude. Andy puts his arm around the lady, saying the group needs her. Taking it off, she replies they will be fine by themselves. Heather tells her that Carla said she wanted to lose herself in the woods. She does not see a problem with Carla losing herself with them. She gets Rona to agree with her, and Carla agrees to join them. Because of this, Rona wears an upset expression. In the next scene, our attention is brought to several elderly people performing at a bar. Heather dances with Rona, and the former wants the new girl to join them. So Carla dances with her, while Rona sits. As Donnie sits close to her, she says she doesn't like strangers. She blames her dad for giving her trust issues. Donnie assures her not to worry, for he will keep an eye on the new member of their party. Soon they kiss, an event that catches Scott's and Carla's interest. At this moment, a man approaches the dancing girls, asking if they like to party. Heather shows how tough she is by telling him to get lost. In turn, the stranger disrespects her by slapping her behind. This makes Carla punch his face before bringing him down. When he gets up, Carla slaps his backside too, and tells him to get lost. The next day, Rona exits their inn and sees Carla sitting outside. In a short time, the rest of the gang unites with them. Rona claims they have 4 or 5 hours of hiking to reach Mercy Falls. After getting there though, she doesn't know what to do. Heather thinks Carla knows the way, but Rona says she does not know where the cabin is. Carla asks the group if it has an emergency plan in case something goes wrong. Andy replies nothing will go wrong because it's simply a little hike in the woods. Rona thinks her father kept a radio in his cabin. They could use it if they encounter trouble. During their walk, Andy trips and Carla helps him up. She guesses he's not a keen hiker. Later, the gang is in the woods, where Rona wears a troubled look. She says she is confused about exactly where they are. Scott destroys her euphemism by admitting they are lost. Carla wants to see the map, so Rona gives it to her. The former says they need to go north about 3 more miles. She claims to have gone this way in the past. Heather grumbles that it's too far away. Andy complains too, worrying his feet will fall off before they reach those 3 miles. As they walk, they hear strange sounds. Soon they think they lost Carla and call out to her. Rona gets a brief flashback of her much younger self running through the woods. Her father calls for her. In the present, she tells her friends to be quiet, but Heather says no one is talking. Rona remembers her dad with a horse. Again, she tells the group to be quiet, to which Andy replies it's completely silent. Rona keeps being troubled by her memories. Suddenly, Carla appears and startles Andy, prompting her to laugh. He is curious to know how she ended up behind them. Scott wonders the same question. She says she had plenty of practice, due to how Rona was recently behaving. Andy tells her he's not following her anymore. Scott tries to comfort her by telling the lady not to worry about him. Elsewhere, Rona thinks she hears water. Scott hears it too. They aren't wrong, for the gang sees lots of it flowing in a short time. At night, they have their camp set up. Scott reads a book written by Homer and claims he is the godfather of storytelling. All the world's stories were influenced by him. Andy does not believe it. Once he learns the book has goddesses in it, he instantly wants to read it. Suddenly, he drops the newspaper he was holding. Carla seems to look at it with some anxiety. When Heather approaches Andy to play around with him, Carla collects the newspaper. Soon Scott gets angry with his girlfriend's promiscuous behavior, causing her to leave Andy. Scott tells him not to test the former and asks Heather if this is okay for her. Rona says they were just playing, but Scott is getting sick of it. Standing up, Andy tells him Heather has needs, which Scott is not taking care of. In the meantime, Carla crumples the newspaper before tossing it into the fading fire. Donnie observes her doing it. We should remember he promised Rona he would watch her. The next scene has a helicopter flying over a desert. We see an injured woman lying somewhere in that desert. Carla is beside her, wearing a military outfit. She holds the injured woman's hand, telling her it's going to be okay. Afterward, she occupies a battlefield, where an enemy soldier grabs her from behind while holding a knife to her. Yet she manages to free herself prior to taking the soldier's life. She claims the life of another one. Returning to the present, Heather says they should tell scary stories. Donnie says he hates them, so he chooses to go swimming. Carla announces she's going somewhere too. Scott starts to tell a story that begins on cold, moonless night. Lost hikers look to the water for solace. Then sirens emerge from beneath the surface. They are the most gorgeous and enchanting women in the world. However, they are not of this world. They look for those teetering on the edge. As Scott narrates this, we see Donnie getting ready to enter the water. Scott continues that the sirens pull those people into their deepest depths. Once they think it's their moment to escape, they look around to realize there is no way out. They are completely captured by the siren's web. Carla joins Donnie in the water to complement Scott's story. They start to kiss without saying anything. Rona watches this unfaithful behavior of her boyfriend and becomes upset. Carla seems to notice that Rona is watching, but it doesn't get her to stop. Rona walks away, only to witness more cheating taking place. Heather is being intimate with Andy. Rona struggles to collect herself due to all this promiscuous behavior. When she sleeps, she dreams of the past again. She wakes up from the gruesome act of her father taking the life of a second time. Eventually, a new day dawns, and Scott exits his tent to confront Andy about what he did with Heather. Scott punches him down onto a sharp stick by accident. It impales his leg. As the group tends to him, Donnie tries to phone for help. Alas, there is no signal in these woods. Rona takes Scott's belt to tie it around Andy's wound. Seeing this, Carla draws close to the injured man to cut his neck with her knife. He perishes within seconds. This dreadful happening triggers her memory of being with the injured woman during the war. Carla shot her to ease her pain. Donnie is the first to tell Carla what she has done. She replies he was already deceased. A person doesn't lose that kind of blood and still expect to be able to walk down a mountain. Opposing Carla, Rona says they could have called for help. Carla tells her these are the wild lands. No help can come. Rona still wants to go to the police, but Carla claims they cannot because a corpse is here. She says she took Andy's life, yet Scott punched him down and Heather induced his fate. According to Carla, if this incident gets out, they are all in trouble. Scott worries about going to prison. Carla continues that either Andy was never here or they all go to prison with Scott. She says they should choose between one lie or one life and one truth or all their lives. Donnie wants to bury their friend. Soon the gang collects rocks. While they do, Heather is near the fireplace and finds the crumpled newspaper that never got to burn. We don't see what she reads in the newspaper. Whatever it is, it makes her look at Carla. Heather decides to keep the paper, hiding it inside her coat. Soon the group brings its gathered rocks to put them into Andy's clothes. Carla pulls the deceased guy into the water, watching him sink. With that done, she says they need to find the cabin, clear their heads, and go their separate ways. Heather tells Scott he is the reason Andy is lifeless. He replies that this entire time, she was trying to get a rise out of him. She is the reason Andy is gone. Following this, the group continues to move. As they do, Rona tells Heather she thinks the incident was Carla's fault. At this moment, Heather shows her the newspaper. Rona reads that Carla was in the British Army. She was dishonorably discharged for taking the lives of 2 of her fellow officers. The lady is presumed to be very dangerous. Rona expresses her concern about this. She talks to Scott, telling him what happened wasn't his fault. It was an accident, and they should tell the police. She shows him the newspaper so he can understand what they are dealing with. When the group comes to a cliff, Carla asks Rona if it looks familiar. The latter isn't sure. She needs to see what's on the other side. Carla wants to know if Rona can climb the cliff, which Rona cannot. Thus, Carla now has a rope around her shoulder. She starts to climb the cliff with it. The gang watches her engage in the dangerous activity. Once Carla is at a considerable height, Rona tells her friends they have to leave. Donnie does not know what she is talking about. After she gives him the newspaper to read, Heather says Carla is taking them to the middle of nowhere. Donnie thinks the four of them could beat Carla, but the others decide not to take their chances, so the group starts to run. On top of the cliff, Carla sees them running. Their treachery upsets her, and she tosses the rope down to start descending from the cliff. Eventually, the group stops running to collect themselves. Rona recognizes the area. She knows where to go from there to another place she knows. It is an opening with a long fall to the bottom, where a tree acts as a bridge. Heather starts to walk on the narrow tree first, not showing too much fear. She completes it, followed with Scott. Rona's crossing is not as smooth as theirs was. She falls on the tree. Thankfully, she doesn't fall into the water many feet below. She gets up to cross over to the other side. The last to go is Donnie, who tells his friends to get out of there. He decides to push the tree into the water so Carla cannot reach them. Once he turns around, he sees Carla standing there. She runs to him and takes his life away with an axe. He falls into the water, meeting his end. Carla has a stare-off with Rona for a few seconds until the latter runs away with her friends. While the three survivors rest in a new area, Heather asks Rona why her dad left her his cabin of all the things he could have left. Rona guesses it's the sole thing he had to leave. Heather wonders why Rona doesn't talk about him. The answer she gets is that he wasn't an evil man, but he was misguided. Rona likes to think he gave her the cabin to remind her of the good times when life was simple. At this moment, she tells the story involving the horse. She was in the woods with her father, and they encountered the horse stuck in a trap. Little Rona thought her dad was going to help the animal. Unfortunately, it wasn't getting up, so he helped it perish faster. This caused Rona to run away. She hated him very much for what he did. He could have washed his hands 1,000 times, yet she would still have seen the blood on them. Thinking about the incident now, she thinks he could have been right. She thinks he probably did the only thing he thought he could. Elsewhere, Heather wants to answer the call of nature. While she's relieving herself, Scott tells Rona he is angry with his girlfriend. Rona has faith in them, saying they just need time. They need to be a team. However, he says he's done with her. Switching to Heather, Carla is there to tie a rope around her neck before hoisting it on a tree. Rona calls out to her friend, telling her it's time to go. Soon she and Scott find her lifelessly. The horrific sight brings Scott to his knees. Rona furiously yells out to Carla with profanity. Scott cries by her side. His sadness must be intense due to his last interaction, with Heather being a negative one. At night, Carla watches them run. The next day, the survivors are on a field. Rona thinks their destination is beyond the hill ahead of them. Eventually, they arrive at a green cabin and Rona says it's the one. Thus, the duo enters it to begin searching inside. Rona looks at a framed photo of her younger self with her dad. She takes it in her hands to look at it better. Once Scott finds a radio, Rona hopes the generator still works. He goes outside to another room, where he manages to get the generator to ignite. Rona takes out her family photo and folds it so she doesn't see her father. Now that they have power, Scott turns on the radio. He uses it to call for help while giving their location, but he does not get an answer. Rona tells him she's not perishing like the rest of their friends. She adds it's either Carla or them. Scott doesn't know what to do. Rona does. She suggests they stop Carla. Scott reminds her that she refrains from taking the lives of spiders. The difference with their current situation is that Carla eliminated their friends and has her mind set on finishing them too. This makes Rona certain she will eliminate Carla for what she did. Later, the friends search the cabin for anything they could use as weapons. Rona finds an axe. She says they know Carla is coming, and they know she will find them. She intends to trap the lady. Scott thinks it won't work in this cabin, yet Rona replies it's all they've got. Scott looks at the map, which tells him there is a cave somewhere nearby. He says Carla will expect them to be in the cabin. However, she won't expect them in a cave. Hiding there will give them the element of surprise. Rona thinks it's a good idea. In the next scene, we see the duo in the cave, collecting sticks to create weapons. Scott isn't sure their plan will work. At some point, Rona leaves the cave to look at the sunset. She contemplates their situation. At night, they occupy the cabin. Scott is next to the radio, and he tells Rona he's getting nothing from it. Soon they drink to their lost friends. Amid all this fear and confusion, they find it appropriate to start kissing. We see Carla standing outside, eating an apple while watching the survivors she intends to do away with. Later, Scott notices the generator has gone out. He takes one of the weapons they made before going outside to fix it. As he tries getting the machine to operate, Rona is inside with lit candles. She has another drink of alcohol. Once Scott gets the generator to function, Carla greets him from behind. She whispers if he's looking for her. She slowly comes forth, and he backs away in fear. It doesn't take long for him to punch the lady. To his dismay, The punch does not knock her out. She equips her knife, which prompts him to hold her off with the makeshift weapon. But the experienced Carla slices his arm prior to slamming him against the wall. Rona hears this. Then Carla stabs Scott in the stomach. Rona opens the door, and he falls for her to catch. The poor guy passes away from his wound within seconds. At this moment, the final battle between the two survivors begins. Carla walks into the cabin to deal with Rona. Suddenly, the radio turns on, emitting odd sounds. Since Carla gets distracted by it, Rona uses this time to break a bottle over her head. Following this, she takes a flare and runs out of the cabin. She goes to the cave, where she lights the flare. Soon Carla appears there, seeing the red light. Rona has custom torches set up that she lights. She also collects the axe she hid. Carla screams because of the injury Rona inflicted on her. When the former walks within her sight, Rona attempts to strike her, yet misses. They swing their weapons at each other, and Carla is the first to draw blood. Rona manages to strike her enemy's weapon away. Carla retaliates by using her spear to hack at Rona's back. This delivers severe pain to our main character. Carla holds her against the wall, saying all Rona has to do is ask and Carla will take her life quickly. Instead of doing that, Rona uses the sharpened torch on the wall to impale Carla's leg. She frees herself in the process. Afterward, she takes a bucket of gasoline. She waits a few seconds before she spills it on Carla. Due to the latter holding a torch, she instantly starts to burn. Rona watches the ex-military lady burn to her demise. Having achieved her victory, Rona exits the cave as the sole survivor. She looks at the folded photo of her young self until it falls from her hand. The film concludes with her crying.